Welcome and good afternoon. Thank you all for joining to attend this discussion panel, WISP to FISP, a practical path to building fiber networks. Here to engage in the conversation of tackling the challenges and unlocking opportunities in today's hybrid networks landscape is Litelinx VP of Sales, Alex Freilichman, Josh Haven-Potter, Cambium Networks Fiber Systems Architect, and Winncom's very own Fiber Product Manager, Alex Cernick. If anyone has any questions that arise, please feel free to add them into the chat and they will be addressed. Alex, you are up.
Awesome. Dawn, thank you very much for the introduction. So to kind of tee this off, transitioning from wireless to fiber, it could be overwhelming, especially for service providers and for WISPs. The shift often raises questions about balancing costs, overcoming technical barriers, and ensuring long-term network scalability. Now, today's panel discussion, we're going to address these challenges head on, offering insights, strategies to help you confidently build future-proof hybrid networks. So through the session, we'll cover topics such as blending wireless and fiber networks. We'll talk about what hybrid networks are, common misconceptions, and really how they can kind of work together. We'll talk about simplifying deployments. So innovations in outside plant will be highlighted by Alex at Litelinx. We'll talk about some tools that we have collectively available to you, but ultimately what we can do as a group to make this process simpler. We'll talk about how you get the most out of your money. Using a real world example, we'll highlight 100 homes. It's a 100 home fiber deployment. So what that entire eco center of products would look like. We'll talk about preparing for the future, how to design networks that can grow and they can adapt as technology changes. And finally, we'll bring this full circle talking about how we can work together, how Winncom, Cambium, and Litelinx can team up to create better tools, how we can solve problems, and again, this comes down to how we can make your job easier. So lastly, we'll share practical tips like where to start with your first fiber project, how to solve those common problems, and how to make sure your network's ready for future demands. Now, by the end of the session, hopefully you're going to have a clearer idea of how to take that next step in building out that network and combining both wireless and fiber. So the way we have this set up is back and forth. As Dawn mentioned, we've got Alex from Litelinx on the line. We've got Josh from Cambium. We're going to go through a series of questions. We're going to open this as a panel discussion. And we ask you, if you've got questions, throw them in and let's make this as interactive as possible. And Dawn, it would be a great help if those questions come in, just read them out to us and then we can address them as they come in.
Absolutely.
Alex, since you're already going, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So this is Alex at Winncom. You've been in the industry a while. I learned that we all got quite a number of years under our belt here. And Winncom has been around for a long time. So what are the trends that you've seen with that kind of background? And tell us a little bit about how long that is that you guys have been around and what you're seeing change or stay the same as we move towards hybrid networks and more fiber.
Well, that is a bit of a loaded question, but let me kind of take it by the numbers. So first of which, Winncom is almost 30 years old as a global distributor. And for those of you who don't know, for over 30 years, Winncom's been putting together eco center solutions. So it started with fixed wireless access, and that could be last mile, that could be middle mile. But as our customers' dynamics changed, as the need for various technologies changed, we've changed with that as well. So what we kind of pride ourselves in, and I use eco center, I use best in breed, but what I mean by that is we have everything from soup to nuts. So if you're talking wireless, we have the last mile, the middle mile, but then we have the infrastructure that correlates to that, the routers, the switches, the multiplexers. Same thing on the fiber side, the active, the passive components, the fiber adjacent accessories, the testing equipment. So our goal as a distributor is to really put together that entire eco center, provide you with a single point of contact through your sales manager, and then through internal resources with our design and engineering team, provide a lot of value-added services. Now, the second part of your question, you asked what kind of trends are we seeing? And it varies. So let me kind of take that from two perspectives. So first would be for service providers that have, let's say, 20,000 subs or fewer. The most common trend I've noticed is the lack of experience in fiber. Those particular customers are experts in fixed wireless access. They've been doing that for years, but fiber could feel daunting. So for those customers, Winncom offers support through education, through strategic partnerships. And our goal, again, is to help bridge that gap. Now, before deploying fiber, having a solid network plan is absolutely essential. These include developing both high-level and detailed network designs, determining the best deployment strategy, whether it be aerial or burial, and we'll hear more about that with Alex at Litelinx. And it's assessing factors like, do you have access to trenching machines? Do you have access to boring tools? Do you have a strategic relationship set up with your local utility? That way you can get access to poles and right-of-ways. At Winncom, we want to provide guidance on these critical steps, either through our internal resources or by connecting you with our network of strategic partners. We maintain it's a comprehensive list of trusted regional installers and maintenance providers that can help you if you require assistance on fiber. And a lot of those customers, again, for that 20,000 subs and below, I would highly recommend this by leveraging those installation partners and allowing them to teach you as you start to grow. You pick your spot, maybe it's a citywide deployment, something that has higher density. Let them do the high level, low level designs, let them do the installation and maintenance contracts, and then have your team build and grow with them. That way, as you garner more capabilities, you become more self-assured and have that ability and that experience. Now, on the other side of that coin, and say generalizing with service providers that have more than 20,000 subs, I see customers leveraging the right tool for the job. So a great example can be ongoing BEAD deployments. In cities and surrounding areas, fiber's leveraged 95% of the time. In rural areas, however, that factor does change due to high cost factors, due to remote geography or lower population density. Now for there, fixed wireless access, FWA, is the right solution. So the goal or the trend I'm seeing is customers using the right tool for the job with the ultimate goal of maximizing their passing costs.
I have
Do you have a follow-up question? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dawn.
I apologize. How do you decide, though, if you can install on telephone poles or if you need to go underground?
That's a good question. So for telephone poles, usually you want to have a strategic relationship with that local utility, and there's a lease cost for the right-of-way. In some of these examples, we have those contacts. In others, we can certainly push you or help you determine the right direction. For the ability to bore and to run conduit types of cables, I would say, do you have the right equipment? Alex, Litelinx, you want to jump in? Is there anything you'd say that you're seeing here?
Muted. No audio.
There you are. That's better.
Yeah. I was about to pretend I'm you, so that's a good thing you jumped on. Because that would have been weird for a lot of us here.
I was saying is that this is pretty much the reality, that when it's part of the project, needs to be determined, are you going aerial, are you going underground? often it's a combination. You may go in let's say 80-90% of the network aerial, and then there are going to be parts that you have to go underground. So in some instances, it boils down to pure cost. In some instances, it comes in with requirements from municipality. We don't want anything on the poles to begin with. So, but if there is a pole, like Alex mentioned, there are certain costs involved, including make-ready costs, which ISP needs to be aware, because they might not necessarily be inexpensive to prepare a pole for deployment.
And just to quickly add on to that, and if you're starting to get into fiber and the deployments, again, this comes down to those regional contractors. We can help coordinate that. And again, a lot of them will do high-level, low-level designs in exchange for doing the installation services. So there's ways that we can make this more cost-effective. If you are, and I'll say this a couple times as we're talking, if you are debating this, I'd say send us your information. We'll have a follow-up email that goes. Reach out to us. Let us know what your thoughts are. We can have an individual breakout call. But another thing you're going to hear on repeat from the three of us is no network's the same. Everyone is different. Everyone has its own uniqueness and its own dynamics. So again, engage us. We've been doing this for a very long time, and our goal here collectively is to make this as simple as possible, a simple process as possible. So
I'm curious, do you find any recurring light bulb turn on where customers say, I wish I would have known that when I started? Basically misconceptions that that you find popping up.
So I do see some misconceptions, in particular with those converting from fixed wireless or exclusively using fixed wireless to fiber. One is, can the systems effectively work together? Or deploying a hybrid, is it too complex or is it too costly to be feasible? So in reality, hybrid networks, they're designed to maximize the strength of both these technologies, fixed wireless and for fiber. Wireless solutions provide quick, cost-effective coverage, while fiber delivers ultra high capacity, long-term scalability. But again, as I used in that previous example, a lot of customers, as you get into this and it becomes more comfortable, it's a toolbox, right? It's what's the right solution based on this customer's or this deployment or this project area or this PAU's unique requirements. And if it's BEAD, we'll use BEAD as an example here too. A lot of the states, you have what's called a PAU, it's a project area. And then within that PAU, you have BSLs, and it could be residential, it could be commercial, and then you've got community anchor locations that are in there as well. The ruling there for you to be chosen or to be eligible for that funding, you've got to have a strategy for absolutely everything. So what I've seen, and use Arizona as an example, use West Virginia as an example, states that have diverse topology, one thing doesn't cut it. Dense areas, highly populated areas, we're using fiber, and fiber is being deployed 90-95% of the time. But as you move out and you've got lower population areas, you've got more hills, you have fewer roads, fixed wireless becomes more prevalent, in particular CBRS, which has the ability to go through trees more effectively. I've even had scenarios where a portion of that could be satellite because it was impossible to get fixed wireless or fiber there. And working with us collectively, and this goes back to us trying to make this simpler, what we've become extremely good in is helping customers determine the right strategies, helping them move through the grant writing process. And again, if you are looking to apply to BEAD, I would highly recommend you reach out to us where we can help and get a better understanding of what you're looking to do. But again, to answer that question, I know it went off a little bit of a tangent, is there's no one size fits all solution. Everyone's unique, everyone's different, and using that best in breed right technology, I think, is kind of the keys to the kingdom. So Alex, we were talking earlier on today about advancements in outside plant technology. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how we can help our customers simplify installations, especially if they're new to fiber?
Absolutely. So, so what was interesting is when we began with our backgrounds from technology into fiber, we're coming in, we're like, well, that's kind of a little bit boring, I guess. The active component piece is fun. We understand that, the light, the link budget, and so on. But once we move into the fiber, it becomes very labor intensive and often cost high cost. So we began looking into what can we do. I mean, yes, there were some improvements in fiber construction in terms of materials, some interesting innovation within the cable itself. But at the end of the day, we were talking about a cable. As long as it complies with certain meets or exceeds ITU standards, it's plus or minus very, very similar. Yes, there are different types of cables, but at the end of the day, if you have to run an aerial cable, it's about the same amount of labor. The question is, do you choose lashed solution or you may choose a DSS solution? There will be some variants. So for WISPs that come in with the backgrounds of wireless background, hey, here's a tower, here's a subscriber unit, you don't really think that path, half a mile to 3 to 5, what happens along the way, as long as it's not too much foliage, for example, or as long as there is a foliage and it's reasonable. Here you have to worry about every foot, essentially. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is many WISPs, they like to do things themselves. So what we recognized is maybe let's introduce smaller spool sizes that are more convenient and easier to lift and handle when they're bringing when they're working outdoors. So when they're connecting to the customer. So we're like, okay, let's bring shorter spools, maybe 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, something that's within 20 to 40 pounds that can be easily managed without sacrificing cable quality. And then we began looking into actual construction. And what we see is that the construction really, yes, tools improved, but the process really didn't change in past 30, 40 years. So we began looking into how can we innovate there. And we began developing technology that is starting to, we're actually piloting it right now, that we call digital fiber. And that's really the innovation that world was waiting for. And it will help WISPs, it will help medium-sized ISPs, and it will help larger-sized ISPs, because at that point, we are able to see and get data of every single foot of fiber, from the inventory management to the construction and past deployment, where you can grab the inventory audits. Alex mentioned something about the bid. One of the big problems within the bid or any other granting programs is audits. And to be able to effectively deal with that, to get reimbursed, is an issue. And if an ISP hasn't dealt with that, diving into bid, you will, guaranteed. So can you have a system that can tell you exactly what goes where, foot by foot on a network, with essentially push of a button, not an estimation, an actual real data. That is another big piece, and this is the kind of innovation that we're thinking step ahead. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen day after tomorrow that can help ISPs to build a network, future-proof it, and not jeopardize their financial situation of the company by delayed reimbursements or declined reimbursements.
I think that's amazing. So that would be real-time data of what's exactly on site, cable type, how many feet are there. I would assume that's going to reduce waste, make it simpler to build out other sites. So that's very unique, and we're certainly looking forward to hearing more about that, Alex.
No, absolutely. It's a life cycle. A project life cycle is a big deal, and the bigger the project, the bigger the deal becomes, and it becomes very expensive because people don't think really, but majority of the cost on the outside plant construction, outside plant, well, on a fiber network is in outside plant construction. So so can we automate it? Can we streamline it? Can we make it better, easier for people to dip into the fiber? That's where a lot of our emphasis are going into developing that technology.
Speaking of big projects, I have a question here. Do you see the big giants like AT&T or Windstream and other ISPs that are willing to collaborate in fixed broadband sharing, as in they share network infrastructure and provide internet to the rural areas?
Is it to AF, AC, or Josh? Which one?
Neither.
Actually, if you so there is a concept about open infrastructure, open network that's been discussed for several years. We've been doing it in the wireless world, like a neutral host style, where network is built and several ISPs can utilize that infrastructure. We've been doing it for a long time. On the fiber network, the concept is also there, and ISP, and for example, AT&T publicly was talking about having this style access to the network. For smaller ISPs, it's actually quite interesting, and it's gonna go back to Josh's Josh's technology that these guys are implementing within their OLT to run multiple VLANs and how they manage it. And that actually going straight into the answer, Don's, your question is yes, absolutely. In fact, using Cambium, this becomes very painless process because you can use the same infrastructure, same IP infrastructure that spreads from wireless into fiber, and same ISP can take advantage of both components.
And I would add something to that. The question was AT&T and Windstream leasing service, which they absolutely do. And I think Alex covered that fairly well. But there's also ways for you to lease service. So if you're running a backbone or running a large deployment of dark fiber, using microconduit and doing that in a way where you can build out and lease a portion of that service to other providers in the area is fairly prevalent as well. And that could be things like leveraging Litelinx burial cable. That could be using Durline on the microconduit, where if you had two customers that were willing to lease fiber, again, you can keep those fiber runs completely separate. Again, we're seeing both of those being opportunities. And then a lot of shared resources as well, especially if you're talking fixed wireless with American Tower and other companies like that, where you can lease a service rather than deploy your own. Again, cost-saving ways. Dawn, you had another question?
Well, I'm not sure if it's another question. I think it was just restructured for me, so maybe I asked it wrong, but It states this means that open networks, the same as GPON and XGS-PON, can an ISP share their network infrastructure to use the conduit to put their fiber in?
Those are kind of, that is conflating two things that are difficult to put together. As far as the open network goes, you could do, like, from a Cambium perspective, you could do an all Cambium network where you have the Cambium OLT and ONTs, and then you could use VLANs to distinguish which IP network they're joining. So there's one PON system, but multiple carriers could use that system. That's often called an open network. There's also another concept of being open, and that is having third-party integration, and we do have interoperability with third-party ONTs, but that's also a place full of landmines, because when you have special features, those don't necessarily work the same way on third-party units. It's difficult to quality control that. So at the moment, I'm not aware of any platform that's really good at having third-party ONTs with full support of all features. So you kind of marry the subscriber unit with the controller unit, but you can do interoperability. Mostly it's useful for like brownfield deployments, or if you've got tens of thousands of units out there, but you want to change technology even over a long period of time. You just know that this area of the network can't support certain things. That works. I had 3 in mind, but the third left me.
Yeah. So that, okay, Don.
And I apologize, it's just continuing. In asking that, how do you define the third-party features?
Well, for instance, VLAN support. We can support like a trunk mode where you could let the end provider define the VLANs just by using them, and that's really good if you've got like a city network that you're sharing services to. You could set their units up so any tag traffic can then be switched to other tag traffic at the other unit or other site. So that's a handy thing that could also go up to an upline carrier, and then they can define their own VLANs, and that's kind of a unique feature for us. So we have a lot of flexibility, but those features, like if you take a third-party ONT and plug it in, you won't be able to do those trunking features because it requires special firmware on that endpoint. So that's an example where you would need to, for that case, you would need to have a switch out to where that endpoint is a Cambium ONT.
So just to throw in an idea, what I would recommend is just continuing this conversation offline. If we can have a better sense of what legacy infrastructure are you looking to replace on the ONT side, I think we could get you probably a more exact answer, or maybe even showcase a customer example that went through a similar transition. So Josh, just I guess on the same topic, what strategies and tools have proven more effective in assisting WISP customers, like the customer who's asking this particular question, from transitioning from wireless to hybrid?
Well, let me just take it a little bit more broadly, not so connected yet to this customer's question, but the primary barriers that I see that you need the tools for come down to funding and construction. Those are the things that really are the barriers to entry to getting up and going with fiber to the home network. My recommendations to solve those kind of come like funding. Getting grants allows you to manage a scale that you can go to, but ultimately you're going to have resources that you're putting towards it as well. So you find a project that's right size. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Work with contractors instead of trying to learn like everything all at once, because there's a lot of outside plant things that we don't know as WISP operators. That's kind of where my background came from. And when you work with a construction company, you don't have to learn to become a construction company while being an internet provider. And you can learn from that experience. And then next time, if you're like, I want to do my own construction on the next project, you just go ahead and do that. But I would say just be careful how much you're biting off at once. And then we do offer a couple tools. Maybe you can pull up a web page if you could share that. If you go to fiber.cambiumnetworks.com, on the left there's a pond calculator which loads this page. A big question people I hear often is like, well, how far can I go? And what about my splitters? And what are my light level expectations? How am I going to engineer this? So this is a simple tool that you can use. On the left, you can stack splitters up. So you currently have set up a 1x4 splitter. Maybe that's right next to the OLT. So you got 4 different feeder lines going out into the network. Going into a 1x2 splitter at like a pole or some location next to the customer where you're splitting out, and then going into a 1x8. That 1x2 I had you put that there for a special reason.
Okay.
This is showing a feature that we're working on right now that's almost complete, called Type B pond protection. It allows you to put that 1x2 in backwards. So you've got 2 uplinks for the one customer. And so you can actually fail over to another OLT, and then you have a high availability in your distribution network, and fiber cuts don't impact you so badly. So it's a nice thing to design for if you're doing that design. If you don't have the light budget for that 1.2, or if you don't value that high availability, then you can pull that out. But that is something that our platform is fully able to do, and we're exposing that feature real soon here. But this pond calculator also has a distance calculation there, and then it shows you by turning red when there's not enough light, as you can see in the bottom there. And the top and bottom show you the transmit and receive on 2 different protocols, the XGS PON and the GPON. And as you can see, the XGS PON goes a little bit further, and it's still green when the GPON only would be out of light already. Those numbers, though, these are generic numbers, and you really need to tune them to the specific decibel loss that you're getting per splitter. So up in the settings there, you can do things like adjust your the amount of decibel loss that you have on a splitter. This is a tool that helps you just estimate when you're trying to think through the network and say, how far can I go? How many splits can I have in there? Is it going to work in the end? Get this tuned up with your numbers, and then it will give you a pretty reliable link budget, and you'll know what you can design for. So that's a help. Another help that Cambium gives is the ability to acquire the product really easily. I've heard stories where some vendors can take a long period of time just to get a quote on what it's going to cost you, and you have to sign NDAs and all this stuff. We work with a distribution channel and make it very easy, and we're highly supportive of making sure you understand your bill of materials. We make that easy. You could take brand new equipment, be up and going, passing traffic in 10 minutes, so it's not complicated. You don't have to have training to be able to know how to operate it. If you can operate a fixed wireless network, you can operate this fiber platform. It's very familiar. And then daily management we make very simple. Zero touch onboarding, easy to change speeds or something if you want to. It's very simple to get going. To tie that back into the question, can you remind me a little bit, because I didn't cover that yet.
What strategies and tools have proven most cost effective in helping a WISP transition from wireless to hybrid?
Okay, so that I've mostly covered. The other, I was in my mind thinking for brownfield deployments for changeover. One thing an experience that I have when we are doing a brownfield deployment, work with me. I'll get the same model number that you're planning to support interoperability with, and I can do the full testing here in my house and make sure it's working before you go and purchase equipment and find out whether it works or not. We also have a demo process where I can send an entire kit ready to test, and then the ISP can evaluate that for a few weeks and test their interoperability and send it back. If the interoperability is not working and you need features, we have to do a diagnosis process and change the OMCI commands that are being sent. And so we got to get an engineer directly on that and troubleshoot that, and then we can support that third-party unit that wasn't working. We sort of, I have a lab here. I've got a whole bunch of equipment right there running right now with third-party equipment and our own.
Nice.
So what's your electric bill, Josh?
What's my
electric bill
that?
with all this equipment?
Oh, it's kind of high. Yeah, I run about 5 amps just in my office for my demo gear continuously, so it's a load.
Yeah,
probably
it's
about
a nice
like
Bitcoin
running
machine over there. Bitcoin miner.
Yep. And I don't think you can see them, but I have a stack of them right there that are for the demo units. I got one of those running right now too, so that's taking more power.
So let me ask you a question. So I don't just for my personal curiosity, because generally what I see, like if people are familiar with something, it's their comfort zone, it's easier for them to transition, from one platform to another. And Cambium been really good at that, like maintaining same look and feel. How's your software on the Fiber?
It's almost identical to our fixed wireless. It's built by the same team as the EPMP line is. So the look and feel is very familiar. The way you do firmware updates is the same. A unique difference, you can push updates from the OLT to the subscriber units. So you can upload an image and then multi-select and send the images out. You can also do it through CMaestro, which a lot of people will be used to. So it feels very Cambium-like. It's also very simple to get up and going, even the complexity of all the VLAN options. You can have any combination of tagged or double tagged on the uplink or on the downlink going to the customer. And setting those up is very easy. It takes a minute to understand how they're connecting to each other, but like it's a 2-minute learning curve, and then you can do anything you want with it.
So double tagging, you support Q and Q basically?
Yep, Q and Q, even Q and Q pass through. So if you're passing it through to a tower, then no problem. You can have Q and Q on the tower. And we also have this new product. Thought I had it right here, and I don't. Oh, here's. So we've got a subscriber unit on a stick. It's a 10 gig module that you can plug into a tower router or something. So if you want to convert over to wireless or feed one of your towers off a PON, just get one of these and plug it in. See if I've got. I don't have anything handy to show you it plugged in.
So this would be the SFP basically module.
Yep. SFP subscriber module. I don't know where you can see it best here. PON right in there, and then that plugs into any SFP or SFP plus port. And it does stick out a bit, so you got to have room for that. Other than that, it's ready to go, and it works with our fixed wireless access points, so you can go straight into an AP if that's what's best for you, or a switch or a router at the base of the tower.
I have a question.
Sorry, Alex. Yeah, didn't mean to hijack the conversation. Go ahead. Go ahead, Don.
Actually, I have a comment and a question. The comment is, love the FiberLink budget calculator tool, Josh. That's great stuff. And another comment saying, I love the Q question and answering. However, the question is, what is the thought about just not the OLT that can control the network, but the ONTs as well, meaning the OLT is end of sales, but ONTs are no longer compatible with OLTs as it is the end of sales.
Not fully understanding that. So you're talking about third-party ONTs or us ending life on ONTs?
I will reread it. What is the thought about not OLTs controlling the networks, but the ONTs as well? That means the OLT is end of sales, but ONTs is no longer compatible with OLTs as it is the end of sales.
Well,
I'm not sure I fully understand.
if you would end of life an OLT, the predecessor, the newer version of that would be, I would assume, backwards compatible on the ONTs, correct?
It says no longer backwards.
So our solution, we're dedicated to maintaining backwards compatibility and forward compatibility. That's why we went combo PON. So you can deploy GPON as well as XGS PON. We also can move up to 50 GPON as the next step, which will also be combo PON. So you can support the existing GPON and XGS PON as well as the 50 GPON just by changing the OLT out. And that will support. Realistically, though, the chipset cost on the 50 GPON is too expensive to deploy as a primary right now. It makes more sense to let that chip manufacturing mature for a few years. So it'll be a few years before we come out with a 50 GPON. And that's a whole lot of, XGS 10 gig to the customers, quite substantial already.
Yeah.
And in 5 years, maybe going more, but that's what we see as a path through. And it is standards compliant. You said something about allowing the ONT basically to manage things. The way GPON works, it has an ONC provisioning process, and that is where the OLT provisions the subscriber unit, and that's how the switch chip rules are set up in the OLT itself, and how the subscriber is provisioned for its packet processing. So the protocol itself really defines it to be like a server controlled with a slave subscriber unit.
Nice. Great question, by the way. So changing gears a little bit. And Alex, I guess Litelinx, just a kind of maybe a combo answer for you. You started off with software and uniformity. So I'm going to kind of move this to a cable-related questions about regulations and compliance. How does your products align with regulatory compliances? And is there any advice you could give us on how to navigate any of these challenges?
Simple question. It doesn't align. I'm just kidding.
True, false. I like that.
No, on a serious note, so our manufacturing is a global manufacturing spread through several countries and several regions. Plus, we're in the process of building, also augmenting our global manufacturing with US manufacturing side as well. So that means that when you are dealing with the projects and money coming in from one of the funding buckets, we have to be, both. We have to work with an ISP and consulting firms in the middle to understand, okay, what funding buckets, what are the requirements? Because not all products within our portfolio, and at some point we can kind of briefly talk about what we actually offer, but not all products within our portfolio made equal or made in the same region. It's actually spread globally. It helps us deal with the supply chain. It helps us minimize lead times and address the need. So in addition to, yes, coming into BEAD, obviously BABA compliance will become at some point an important requirement, and that's also a goal to make sure that we do have BABA compliant products for projects that would require. Does it need across the board? No, because obviously with BABA, it also drives cost of product up as well, and it needs to be sensible. The project has to make sense to make sure that budget lasts you not 50% of the time, not 75% of the time, but 100% lasts you from beginning to the end. And statistically, actually, it's pretty interesting that 75% of projects, fiber projects, are over budget. 75%, guys. So that means over budget comes in terms of money, and over budget comes in terms of time. So, and what happens if you run out of money? And that's it. And I mean, it means that the original intent to cover X number of houses cannot be fully implemented. So what happens is the right solution, hybrid networks, because you have to use the right tool for the right application. It's shouldn't be, you know, one fit all. So and quality bandwidth can be delivered over wireless, fiber, and or combination of both.
So if I could quickly add on to that, one of the values of Winncom is we've doubled down on BEAD, on RDOF, on tribal connectivity, et cetera. So we do maintain a database of compliancy in regards to products. If we're talking active fiber, passive fiber, fiber adjacent accessories like the enclosures, exempt products like the fixed wireless access. So if you are looking to leverage any of those particular funding vehicles, engage me in a one-on-one conversation. And at bare minimum, from an eco center perspective, I can showcase what vendors fall under compliancy or exempt based on the waiver wire. And then depending on what you're looking to do as well, we can help you with your PAU identification, your BSL strategy, pulling in tier D information, putting together designs from the fiber perspective, low level, high level, heat maps on the wireless. So there are a host of products and services we can certainly bring to the table that will, again, coming back to simplicity, attempt to make this complicated scenario a lot easier. So
I'd like to.
Go ahead.
I'd like to jump in when you're done.
Yeah, go. Jump ahead.
So I'm thinking about the problem of running out of budget and whatnot, and there's multiple elements. There's your direct capital expense, but there's also time learning the platforms, availability to sell stuff. You need to have a recovery on your investment as quickly as possible. And it's something that we've worked really hard to solve. Having a single pane of glass that you can use to manage your fixed wireless, Wi-Fi when you're entering facilities, being able to self-manage Wi-Fi services like the MDUs. We've actually had a lot of traction with MDUs. So being able to go past an RV park or a garden-style apartment and be able to offer services there, and even services that are different than what you offer elsewhere, those capabilities allow you to start with some projects and generate revenue quickly and offer things that other providers can't offer, like a Wi-Fi overlay that allows customers to roam down to the pool and still be on their home network across the fiber platform. That requires some special switching that, as far as I know, there's no other provider that can do that, because we focused on that, having that background in enterprise wireless and bringing fiber to the system. You know, we focused on solving some of these problems, and of the carrier grade solutions, I'm confident you're not going to find a better price. So when you take the whole platform together, simplifying learning, training of your team, we're not the lowest cost on everything, but I really think when you look at it from a value perspective, we're the best value.
Awesome.
You know, I think it was Warren Buffett that said, right? Price is what you pay, value is what you get.
Yep, that's the way to say it.
I like it. So I know we're running short on time. I think we've got 8 minutes left in this. We spent some time, we wanted to put together some reference materials. That way, as we're kind of talking through EcoCenter, we could kind of do a show and tell, for lack of a better word. Alex, maybe we start with you. So I'm sharing the Litelinx application drawing. Can you kind of talk through this just from a holistic perspective? What does an eco center look like? What are some of the options that our customers could kind of entertain?
So the beauty part is this. So the Josh's piece of the puzzle, the beginning and the end, let's call it, the active components are really the same. Plus or minus, there are going to be some nuances, but in general, active components of the network are the same. So they're very predictable. You can understand and build a reasonably good bill of material, and it's gonna meet the reality. Once you move into the fiber, now the question is, are you going aerial or are you going burial? Maybe it's a blend. So what we did, we depicted two topologies, one that is underground and one that is aerial. And depending which way it goes, there are different pieces that's needed. If you're aerial, you may need more of like aerial closures and MSTs. And obviously cables will be gravitating towards an aerial style cables like ADSS, like flat drop, like anti-rodent is actually very popular products. Now, if you're going with cables, if you're going with burial solution, now the question is it direct burial or you're pulling it through conduit, or you're doing maybe air-blown. So for each one, there are going to be some nuances and differences, which direction we're going to steer within our portfolio, because and going back to the beginning of the conversation, like Alex mentioned, no network is the same. So each network needs to be looked at separately, individually, and figured out, okay, what is the right mix of products? What do we need to make sure that we complete you or provide you a complete portfolio of within the bill of material? If you're going with ADSS, what are we talking about? What are we doing about the mounting hardware, and so on? So that's this is the value that we are bringing together with Winncom. Is we work together, we figure out what is the best mix, how much of it you need. These guys help with logistics heavily, because some things are light, some things are not. And then if there is if there is a deviation from, let's call it standard operating procedure, let's say a multi-dwelling unit, where now we're talking about buildings, and just standard components that are available off shelf don't really work well. It requires a little bit of tweaking and making sure to adopt it for the application. Now they don't look good and so on. So this is where another strength of Litelinx strength comes in. Is we specialize in custom solutions. So if there is a custom closure that needs to be designed, or a custom cabinet that needs to be designed, we can understand the specification, and very quickly provide an engineering design, for the system. As long as I always say, hey, it's 3 yeses. Is it legal? Is it ethical? And does it make sense to all of us? If yes, we do it. And that's kind of how we approach the business, and specifically for smaller ISPs, for WISPs, tailored approach is important, and because mistakes can be very expensive and costly, and we're trying to minimize it and make the entry from WISP to FISP easier as much as possible.
Alex, strangely enough, that was the same advice my dad gave me when I went to college for the first time. So I think those are words to live by.
Yep.
Awesome. So I know, again, we're coming down on time. I'm going to put this one to Josh. We talked about coming up with an example, right? So in constructing a hybrid network, let's assume 100 homes. What product recommendations would you make to maximize ROI? And I'll pull up the Cambium BOM calculator for a reference tool here.
So a question that this answers is, what does it cost me to deploy Cambium fiber? Just from the Cambium perspective, not all of the paths between the endpoints. And so this bill of materials here has a street price shown, and they're in the middle that are white with black around them, $112. That shows you the cost of all the stuff divided by the number of customers that are shown up there. So there's a little calculator at the top where you put the number of customers and then adjust the quantities below and does the math and shows you that total project price and then that cost per customer. So this is 400 subs, but you said a 100 subscriber network. So go ahead and change that 400 over to 100. And a couple other assumptions on this. It's doing 36 customers per port. That is adjustable. And it's also, this is a completely GPON network. So let's also assume they wanted a 20% XGS PON and because they want to be able to go over 1 gig connections. And then that will be 80% remaining GPON. That adjusts your cost per customer from 120, I think it was. Now we're at 173.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the cost is because the OLT is one of the more expensive items. And if you don't have it really filled out, then your cost per sub is a little on the higher side. So if you took this to a larger network, like 250, your cost per sub is going to go down. So this just helps you get an idea. It's a little calculator that changes the bill of materials down below and breaks it down to the real nuts and bolts. And this answers that question from a fiber perspective, but like we've been saying, hybrid makes a lot of sense. You've got people on the other side of a river and it's a big job to cross that river and there's only 3 homes over there. Why not transition to wireless? You can give gig service reliably across your river with wireless. So you start adding, like that module I just showed earlier, it's right here, into an access point and cross the river or cross the railroad and pick up those couple customers and build that hybrid network that makes sense. Transition to, millimeter wave. We have 60 gigahertz options that are mesh. You can do corporate switching and corporate Wi-Fi if you've got business customers and you want to do those services, just like using a single platform to be able to make money in the ways that make sense without big learning curves that make it not viable to, get into offering those services.
Yeah, and
Did
one of
that
the things,
answer pretty well?
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about was coming up with tools that made it easy. And this one in particular, we use a lot here at Winncom just for budgeting. And that's a big part of this. What is the estimated cost for these networks? And then we have, and this could be separate breakout discussion, this could be an hour-long webinar, but we have a whole bunch of funding vehicles we can help you with. If it's leasing services or private equity services, we've got strategic relationships set up with multiple different firms and companies. That way, when you're looking to expand, that's something we can certainly help you do. And again, just something really quick to bring it full circle. Going back to that 100 customer design, let's say that you want to look at CBRS in parallel to fiber, right? Because it's the right toolkit kind of idea, right? In density, fiber makes sense. In rural areas that are topology challenged or have lower density options, CBRS makes sense. So what does that bill of materials look like? What are this is the 450B, which would be the house, the residential, the business locations. This would be your tower sites with 4 sectors. But again, I wanted to showcase when we put these bill of materials together, it's not just one product, it's the entire eco center that goes with it. It's the breakout boxes, it's the jumpers that correlate to that, it's the power systems, it's the enclosures, it's the routers, either site routers or cellular routers. It could be professional services. It can be the infrastructure. If you're doing wireless, it could be non-pens. It could be standoffs. It could be Rowan or Trilon towers. Again, our goal here at Winncom is to work with best-in-breed manufacturers like Cambium Networks, best-in-breed manufacturers like Litelinx, and again, pooling all of these great resources to make sure you've got a complete bill of materials to save you time and to make sure that as we're looking to put together these budgets, you've got everything from A to Z. I know we ran a little bit over here. I would encourage anyone who has any upcoming fiber opportunities or wireless opportunities, engage us. You can drop your information for us to reach out. As Alex and Josh both said, no network is the same. Everyone's got its uniqueness to it. And we would love to help you bring these next generation networks into your network. That's all I got. Alex or Josh, anything you'd like to add?
Oh yeah, I have a long list of items, but we're out of time. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
concur.
next session.
Yeah. We're all talkers, so sorry about that. We could do this all day. And then as a thank you and as a call to action, we have an inventory order that we just pulled in for Litelinx, and it's a combination of multi-strand cable and then a lot of drop cable and different options there. So we have a promotion running. It's an additional 10% off. So we'll reach out to you. You'll get a copy of this panel discussion. You'll get a copy of the slides, and then you'll have what products we're referencing. And again, that's listed all on Winncom's website. Again, if you've got any questions or if there's any opportunities we can help you with, reach out, and the team here will reach out and respond to you as soon as we can. Thank you, and I appreciate everyone's time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.